Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Jasper Wildfire Recovery Reconstruction Symposium today. I'd just like to begin today's event with a movement. I hope everybody from our community, please let them know the chat. To begin with the acknowledgement today, we acknowledge and recognize that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships with the territory upon which our campuses are located that precede the establishment of your university. The area is known as Toronto and has been caretaken by the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron Landmass. It is now home to many First Nation, Inuit, and Métis communities. We acknowledge the current treaty holders and sagas of the Credit First Nation, and that the territory is subject to the Official Council of Mountain Document. An agreement to peaceably share and care for the First Nation. As this is an online event, our participants may be joining from various locations, so I strongly encourage them to learn about the traditional land upon which you are located. With this, I'd like to welcome our speakers and our participants who are joining us today. I'd like to now introduce our first speaker today, Dr. Jasper Wildfire. Dr. Rozdilsky is an associate professor of disaster and emergency management here at the university. He is a subject matter expert in the field of emergency management. His professional duties include research, teaching, and service. He has research and practice interest in the field of interdisciplinary emergency management and homeland security. Dr. Rozdilsky is also active in field-based qualitative research applications that have been impacted by disasters, natural, technological, or social origin. He has recently participated in the field-based exploration of disaster recovery in Jasper, Alberta. His recent areas of specialty include terrorism, mass shootings, man-made hazards of social origin, and social vulnerability. Dr. Rozdilsky also has an interest in the study of infrequent and unusual disaster events. He holds a doctorate from Michigan State University, and he's an author for media outlets providing analysis of current events related to disasters, emergencies, and public safety. His writings can be found in the conversation. Dr. Rozdilsky, thank you very much for being here today. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Del Carpio, for the kind introduction. I would like to welcome the viewers here on the York University campus, and also persons joining virtually through the internet. I have a presentation of approximately 35 minutes, where I'll be speaking directly to issues related to the disaster recovery currently taking place in Jasper. The title of this presentation is "We Are in This Together: Wildfire Disaster Recovery in Jasper, Alberta." There are 5 parts to this presentation. The first part will be a background concerning the setting in Jasper. In terms of the Jasper setting, this presentation focuses on a specific area of Western Canada in the province of Alberta. Jasper is located in the western part of the province of Alberta, in an area of Canada known for its national parks. Jasper is the 2 closest large cities to Jasper are Edmonton to the north and Calgary to the south. In terms of the city of Jasper, the Jasper town site, the Jasper town site has a relatively compact layout, where most areas in the Jasper Central Business District and Jasper City Center are within 5 to 10 minutes walking distance from one another. So we're talking about a urban location that has a relatively small footprint compared to other larger metropolitan areas in Canada. This photograph shows an aerial photo of the Jasper town site. And in this photograph, you can see the Jasper town site lies in the Athabasca River Valley. You could also see a railroad heading into Jasper and the highway heading into Jasper from the photograph. So Jasper is also considered to be a regional transportation hub and point of access to the Jasper National Park. Jasper is the name for both a town site and a specialized municipality in western Alberta's Athabasca River Valley. A specialized municipality is a specific type of jurisdiction in the province of Alberta, where there is a unique municipal structure that allows for both rural and urban communities to coexist in a single structure of a municipal government. Regarding the Jasper municipality, the Jasper town site is one of 6 geographic areas in the Jasper municipality. The Jasper town site is the only urbanized area. Also, Jasper is inside of a federal national park boundary, meaning governance for Jasper is shared between the municipality and Parks Canada. The municipality of Jasper assumed responsibility for specific jurisdictional matters from the federal government agency Parks Canada in 2002. So when we consider the governance setting for Jasper, the Jasper municipality is a recent creation, a relatively recent creation of the province of Alberta, and it operates in a very specific municipal setting, which is much different from other municipalities in municipal settings in Canada. The population of Jasper prior to the fire was about 4,817, and according to 2023 data. The number of dwelling units in Jasper is approximately 2,000. The labor force is about 2,200, and the Jasper median income was at 113,620, which is a higher median income than other places in the province of Alberta. In terms of the economic characteristics of Jasper, it's mostly known to be a mountain travel destination, where it serves as a gateway to I believe, Canada's largest concentration of national parks. Jasper is a business hub for businesses in the sectors of accommodation, food services, arts and entertainment, and recreation. Jasper also serves as a transportation hub for rail transportation and highway transportation, as well as being an administrative center serving the purposes of management of the Jasper National Park. A major function of the town site of Jasper is tourism, as Jasper can serve on its own as a recreational destination for vacationers. Jasper is Also a departure point for nature tourism and outdoor activities along the national park stretch along the Icefields Parkway and the Banff Jasper connecting highway. Despite the population of Jasper, resident population being about 4,800 persons, it is estimated that over 2 million visitors pass through Jasper annually. This is a photograph from the Jasper town site in October, showing an aspect of Jasper with the transportation hub, with the historical railroad station, and the CN rail facility located in Jasper, where Jasper is historically a railroad stop in western Alberta. This is a diagram. This photograph shows one of the business functions of Jasper. This is at the headquarters of the Jasper National Park Administration, which is located in the Jasper City Center. This is a photograph showing an example of the types of accommodation in Jasper, where Jasper serves a purpose of tourism, where there are many accommodation facilities for national park tourists and visitors. Some of those facilities were lost in the wildfires in July, but there are still existing lodging. There's still a smaller amount of lodging in Jasper that was not physically burnt down during this summer's disaster. This is a photograph depicting the Jasper Central Business District, where one would find venues for lodging, food services, entertainment, and tourist-related support services. This is another picture showing Jasper, depicting the point that for some visitors, Jasper can be a specific tourism destination on its own for people who would want to vacation in the Canadian Rocky Mountains setting. This is a photograph taken along the Jasper-Banff Highway. The point being, the city of Jasper serves as a departure point for travelers who would be traveling in the national parks of Canada and the Canadian Rocky Mountains. As I've indicated, the Jasper town site is inside of Jasper National Park. The park is one of 7 continuous national parks, making up a UNESCO World Heritage Site, where there is a protected area that has a configuration of about 400 kilometers long and about 100 kilometers wide. I believe making it the largest national park in Canada. 95% of this national park complex is legally or administratively maintained in a completely natural condition, which contributes to a certain extent to the remoteness of the Jasper town site. Now, I know Dr. Asgary can add more information concerning some of his work concerning how the Jasper wildfire has been affecting the UNESCO World Heritage Site. This photograph depicts the entry to Jasper National Park. The Jasper area is known globally for scenic natural features, including mountain peaks, ice fields and glaciers, canyons, alpine meadows, lakes and waterfalls, karst systems and thermal springs, and Jasper is also a dark sky preserve, which is a primary viewing location in North America for northern lights exposure. This is a photograph depicting what it looks like in the areas surrounding the Jasper town site with scenic mountain views. There are also many glacial features and lakes that serve as attractions for visitors to the national park. Part two, I would like to address the Jasper Wildfire event. In July 2024, there were a number of active fires burning in Alberta and British Columbia. The Jasper fire was one of those fires. The Jasper fire was started by a lightning strike. The first day of the Jasper fires was recorded to be July 22nd, and the Jasper wildfire was not under control until September 7th. There were 32,700 hectares affected by the Jasper wildfire. This is an image showing a satellite image from NASA showing the smoke plume from the Jasper fire. And one could see in this image a smoke plume of approximately 300 kilometers. So this indicates that on the landscape scale, this is a relatively large wildfire that can be viewed from outer space. This is a diagram showing the area of extent of the Jasper fire, with the Jasper town site being one very small area of the larger wildfire impacted area. But the Jasper area, the Jasper town site, was the primary urban area impacted by the fire. Other areas impacted by the fire or non-urbanized areas in the national park setting. This is a photograph taken in late July 2024, which shows the wall of fire that was moving into Jasper. I believe this photograph was taken the day before the wildfires entered into the Jasper town site. There were two fires which affected the Jasper town site. A fire approaching from the eastern portion of the Jasper town site. That fire jumped the Athabasca River. There was also a large fire in the national park south of the Jasper town site. On Monday, July 2nd, with the fires burning northeast and south of the Jasper town site, that was the day the evacuation order was issued, where the entirety of the approximately 5,000 people, residents in Jasper, were put under mandatory evacuation. In addition, there were another 25,000 persons present in the national park who were also put under evacuation order for a total evacuation number of approximately 30,000 people. On Wednesday, July 24, both fires merged and converged on the town site, where the fires reached the Jasper town site line at about 6:40 p.m. On the evening of Wednesday, July 24th, was when significant losses occurred. There were reports of a 400-foot wall of flame that swept into the town site at a rate of 15 meters per minute, making a situation extremely difficult for any type of effective fire suppression. This is a photograph taken from the Jasper town site, showing what it looked like the moments before the fire moved into the town site. This is a photograph from a residential area in the town site on the evening of July 24th during the point of peak impact. This photograph is another photograph of events on the evening of July 24th, showing the Malign Lodge, one of the historic lodging facilities in Jasper, which was lost during the fires. This is a photograph showing a Jasper residential area when the wall of flames approached that portion of the city. It was initially estimated that 30 to 50% of the town was destroyed in on the evening of July 24. So if we look at a chronology of what happened, July 22nd to July 24, according to Parks Canada analysis, more than 20,000 people were evacuated. The peak destruction was on July 24th and 25th. Now, the reentry process began for residents and business operators on August 16th. So the Jasper town site was effectively off limits in emergency response phase from July 22nd to August 16th. So one of the factors that needs to be considered is the length of the emergency evacuation. On August 17 was when the fire was classified as being under control. These two maps depict the initial damage assessments after the July 24 and 25 fire event, indicating areas in red that were damaged by fire, making up approximately 1/3 of the Jasper town site. It was estimated in the initial damage assessments that there were 410 buildings completely destroyed. Those buildings ranged from single family and multifamily residential, retail and commercial businesses, and community facilities. For the third part of this presentation, I'd like to depict some photographs showing field observations from October of 2024. During a visit to Jasper in October 2024, portions of the city were designated as recovery areas. These observations were made 6 weeks after the fire impacted the city. According to models of disaster recovery, this one established by Parks Canada and the city of Jasper, at the time of these observations, the incident was still active. The re-entry to the city had mostly taken place, and the disaster recovery was in one of its earliest phases. And later this afternoon in the seminar, we'll return in more detail to this disaster recovery model. What I'm going to do next is provide a few images showing scenes of the Jasper town site and the areas of the damage. This photograph shows the remainder of what was left of an automobile when the wall of fire came into the residential area. This is a photograph showing what's left of a residence. When myself and Dr. Asgary were on scene in Jasper, there were dozens, if not hundreds, of properties that look like this. This photograph depicts a historical church, an important community facility that was impacted by the fire. This photograph shows a close-up of a utility vehicle with the front panels melted, giving an indication of the heat of the flames when the fires swept through that area. This is a landscape picture showing what remains of an residential area after the fires swept through. This is another photograph showing a detail of what remained of a residence after the fire. This photograph depicts a gasoline station and what was left of the non-combustible components of the gas station after the fire. This photograph represents a popular restaurant that was adjacent to the central business district, which was one of the tourism serving facilities completely destroyed during the fire. This is another view of a residential district completely devastated by the fire. This is another view of a home, and one can see what the nature of destruction in these types of events, that there is very little left where properties are burnt down to their foundation. This is another example of what was left of a home in someone's driveway when they had a van parked in their driveway when the fires came into town. This is a depiction of a tourism facility that was a restaurant and hotel, and what was left in the aftermath. This photograph is another photograph depicting a residential home, a single-family home, which was suffered devastating impact. This is a photograph showing what's left of a business facility. In this case, this was a hardware store, which was impacted by the fire, and one can notice a number of paint cans, which were incinerated in the blaze. In a preliminary analysis, one attempts to understand the scope of losses. And one of the things I've been working on is attempting to match photo settings of before and after circumstances at specific sites in Jasper to get a better grasp of the scope and the extent of damages. Because unfortunately, in many cases where we do post-disaster field research, we have a detailed view of a place after, but it's many times we have scant records of what existed before. So what I attempted to do was to do some photo location matching with photos from both media during the event and photos from Google Earth Street View images to get a scope to help me gain a better scope of the effects of the losses. This is a picture showing what's left of the entry to the gate at the entering into Jasper National Park, where the gatehouse and entrance facilities were incinerated when the fire swept into town from the south. This picture shows the yellow squares focus on a van which was in place during the burning and which happened to be still in the same neighborhood 6 weeks later. This image shows a before and after of a gas station. Gas stations are an important urban function of Jasper, as the closest city to the north is Hinton. Going to the south, there is a long stretch of road and national parks, and the Jasper and Banff National Parks, where services are limited. So many of the people who would be traveling through Jasper for either leisure or business would be stopping in Jasper for a refueling point. And one of the facilities that were lost in Jasper was a number of gas stations, which will need to be quickly rebuilt. These two images show a restaurant. The arch is the point of reference, showing a before and after. This image focuses in on the entryway of the restaurant. So what one can gather from these images is a situation of complete loss for this commercial business, being a family, a Greek-owned family restaurant, which was a popular stop for tourists who would be stopping through Jasper. This light standard was in front of the Malign Lodge and a coffee shop associated with the lodge. So again, this before and after image indicates the extent of the losses. This image showing the loss of a facility, complete loss of a facility which served tourism economic purposes. This next image shows a house, and one can see on this house what's remaining is a planter and the staircase leading to the house. The rest of the residential setting was incinerated in the fire, including the structure of the house and all of the contents inside. So when we look at these before and after images of homes, we can get an idea of the scope of the loss. And this type of loss was replicated over dozens of times, with hundreds of families losing their structure and everything inside it. So when we consider the scope of the aftermath of what persons have lost, the losses were extensive. This is another picture where I matched a portion of a fence to a before and after image showing what happened in this residential neighborhood with the total loss of dozens of single-family homes. This is another example showing a street view from 2018 of the setting on a residential block and how the landscape was completely leveled and incinerated during the subsequent fire. This is another view showing a upper end residential district on the southern portion of town, adjacent to the urban wildland interface, where there were a number of 2- and 3-story homes, which were completely lost as the fire swept into town. Again, those losses would have taken place on the evening of Wednesday, July 25. This picture shows an alleyway with a before and after view. And I guess one of the impacts to consider is not only the extensive losses to homes, but also all the greenery, trees, shrubbery, and every part of the urban landscape was leveled. Where in the after view, one can see straight through to the edge of town in the mountains, where before the neighborhood was a neighborhood that had a number of mature trees, which were also lost in the fire. And this last before and after shows the historical church in Jasper, which was lost, where only the foundations of the structure survived and the remainder of the heritage structure was unfortunately incinerated. In conclusion for this presentation, I'd like to present some initial conclusions and thoughts on Jasper's recovery. These are initial findings for work in progress dated November 2024. They're based on October 2024 field observations. The findings are based on my discussions with Dr. Asgary in terms of feedback concerning his observations in the city. These findings are also based on a case study which I have in progress right now, exploring Jasper's disaster recovery effort. The conclusion has 4 points. Point 1 is an observation. The immediate term challenge is debris management. Point 2 is a question of how the recovery process will sort out. Point 3 is also a question that I don't have answered yet, but a question which is emerging. That is, how will unique land tenure issues present challenges to the disaster recovery? And point 4 is an observation that we are all in this together. Point 1 observation, with winter quickly approaching and winter likely set in place right now in late November in Jasper. In October 2024, there was a massive debris management challenge present, as indicated in the photographs. The plan of operation for the debris removal was a contractor-based bulk debris removal process to be taking place, scheduled for October and November. We would hope at this juncture that a majority of the debris depicted in the photographs has been removed over the past few weeks, but that is a massive job to undertake. A concern is if the debris cannot all be removed and a portion of it gets frozen in place over the winter months, it's still going to be existing in the springtime with the snow melt. It will be a bigger mess for a variety of reasons. It will be a bigger mess for health and safety reasons. And those types of things can complicate and slow down the recovery process. And we know Jasper is a mountain town where winter is in full effect starting in mid to late November in places like Jasper. The second point is a question. Balancing of recovery needs serving residents versus recovery needs serving tourism. A question is, are those needs one and the same? Or is there one set of needs primarily serving tourism purposes and another set of needs serving people who live in the town and residential purposes? Again, prior to the fire, the residential population was about 4,800. When myself and Dr. Asgary were in the city, I can confidently say the population was less than 4,800, but I don't have an exact number I could say of what the population return rate is at this juncture. We also know prior to the fire, there were an estimated 2.5 million visitors who would be going through Jasper yearly. I'm not sure at the present time Jasper can support 2.5 million visitors for 2025. That remains to be seen. Another issue is land tenure issues. How does land tenure influence recovery? To make a long story short, land tenure is defined by how access is granted to rights to use, transfer, and control land, as well as associated responsibilities and restraints for land use. A unique set of jurisdictional issues for Jasper exists, given the setting of the town site and the municipality within the boundaries of a federal national park and a UNESCO heritage zone. In Jasper, the federal government owns the land. There are many layers of nuanced land tenure situations that can complicate recovery. There's a real possibility that unintended consequences of overlapping interests are going to occur as several properties in Jasper are for different properties for a property in Jasper. There are several parties that are allocated rights to use the same parcel of land, but each of those parties is allocated a different set of rights under different jurisdictional control, being the Jasper municipality, the province of Alberta, the federal government, Parks Canada, and all of the regulations incumbent with the national park system. So when we look at how cities recover from disaster, administratively, this recovery has a different mix of jurisdictions at play in the decision-making process, which makes it much different from considering how other cities recover from wildfires in places like Alberta and British Columbia. Jasper is a different beast in terms of how land use decisions are made. And my last point is an observation that Jasper is open for business, and it was clear when visiting Jasper that Jasper wants people to come back. People meaning including residents and including visitors to provide economic support for Jasper during its recovery, since Jasper has lost a very large portion of its tax base. Access to the Jasper National Park is in part dependent on the functioning of Jasper as a town site. In addition to the people who live and work in Jasper, The nation as a whole has a special interest in Jasper's recovery, as Jasper is a location that is enjoyed by persons throughout Canada and a number of international visitors. And this sentiment was reflected in public information posters at the town site that had messages to both Jasperites and visitors. And it was interesting, and this was something that I have not seen before in the early stages of a disaster recovery, where there was a messages to both residents and visitors. The first lines of the message to Jasperites, or the residents, the 4,800 people residing in the city, everything is going through the complex. Everyone, the first line of the message to the citizens read, everyone is going through the complex emotions of grief and loss. Some business owners are ready to reopen, others are not ready yet, and others are still not sure. We support you no matter what. We are in the process. We are in this together, and it is vital we honor and respect everyone's unique path through this. That was a message to Jasperites. On the other side of the public information poster, there was the message to visitors. Welcome to Jasper. Thank you for your support. We need you for our economy and our community to recover. Ask us about our town, the park, and our community. Try not to ask us what we lost in the fire. Everyone lost something, and we find ourselves constantly talking about it, almost constantly. Every dollar you spend in Jasper supports the local Jasperite, and we are grateful for your business. So this is an interesting observation I made when in the city in the early phases of the recovery, setting the tone and the spirit and the approach for the recovery, which is attempting to balance both the needs of local residents with the needs of visitors. And with that comment, that's the closure of my presentation. Thank you for your attention. I'd like to turn the circumstance back over, I believe, to Francisco for the next portion of the seminar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rozdilsky, for that great presentation with your experience and research in Jasper. We are now scheduled for a short break, about 10 minutes for people here in person to grab a coffee, take a washroom break, and then we will be back in 10 minutes with Dr. Asgary's presentation. So please stick around for that. Thank you very much.
you're accused.
So everyone, thank you for,
Don't worry about that.
coming back to your break. Sure, thank you everyone for joining us, for the second part, or the second presentation of our symposium. Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Ali Asgary, who will be giving the second presentation. Dr. Ali Asgary is an expert in disaster emergency and business continuity management. He's been actively involved in research, teaching, and professional activities in these fields since 1993. His research has been published in leading disaster and emergency management journals. He was among the founding faculty members who started the first university program in disaster and emergency management in Canada at Brandon University in 2003, and later among the founding faculty members who started the disaster and emergency management program at Brandon University. Dr. Asgary served as the IAEM, or the International Association of Emergency Managers Canada, president between 2007 and 2009, and was board member of IAEM during the same period. Since 2015, Dr. Asgary has been the executive director of York University's Advanced Disaster Emergency and Rapid Response Simulation, or Anderson Lab. His research interests include post-disaster recovery and reconstruction, business continuity and risk assessment, disaster and emergency simulations and modeling, applications of AI, VR, AR, and MR, and geomatics and disaster and emergency management, and cost-benefit analysis and decision-making and uncertainty. Dr. Asgary is also the director of CIFAL York and the first CIFAL Center within Untitled Chapter in Alberta. With that, I'd like to welcome Dr. Asgary, and I'll pass over the floor to you for your presentation.
Thank you very much, Francesco, and thank you everyone for coming to the in-person and also online. It's indeed a great pleasure to be presenting to you probably one of the most important disaster and disaster recovery case in Canada. It happened, of course, by plan. Dr. Rozdilsky and myself visited Jasper after the wildfire, and came together to organize this event because we feel building capacity, building knowledge, sharing experience in disaster recovery in Canada is really important. For whatever reason, we do not have extensive both academic as well as practical documentations of our post-disaster recovery construction in Canada. We have a scattered research, but it's not comprehensive enough. So our effort hopefully contributes to this discussion, and we also encourage our students and our colleagues to support these initiatives. This is an area that is really under studied and investigated, particularly in Canada. Now, Dr. Rozdilsky basically covered most of the things that I want to cover too, but I'm going to look at it perhaps from a more detailed angle of businesses recovery. But you already got a lot information in terms of what happened and what were some of the immediate consequences of this emergency disaster. And I have been studying post-disaster recovery construction from different angles, including business recovery. I studied this after earthquake, after flooding, after volcanoes, after tornadoes, after industrial accidents, etc. But this is unique in a sense. Wildfire in this context created multiple level of complexity that, as Dr. Rozdilsky mentioned, is not is unique in a sense, but is really different from other typical recovery construction situation that we have. In part because, of course, it's a protected natural environment and also UNESCO site. The town itself has a character and identity that needs to also be looked into. It's not, a typical town in that sense. And that's why also it has probably paid attention to more than other cases in Canada, I believe, at least so far. The trend that we see, the observation that we have, and what we see in the news, more or less talk about either a different approach or a different look into this case, at least from federal, provincial, and local level, and some, of course, international attention. So what I am trying to do, as I said, is more or less focus on business aspect, trying to avoid in terms of time, going into the event itself. But basically, here you can see the overall location of the fire, as also listed by Dr. Rozdilsky. What is important here is that this area was quite large, and also in between two provinces, it is close to border between Alberta and BC. And it is, of course, within a national park that is UNESCO World Heritage, or part of that UNESCO World Heritage site. Now, one key aspect of when we are looking at business recovery from a business perspective is to see what is the key driver of business in a particular place. In some disaster impacted areas, it could be simply industry. In some places, it could be service centers. In some is transportation, like being a major hub, transportation hub, whether it's airport or seaport, etc. You have seen examples, many examples of these cases. For example, in Kobe earthquake, that earthquake impacted one of the largest, indeed, the top container terminal port, seaport in Japan. Because of that, because of the earthquake itself, this port is now, used to be ranked 1. I think it is now ranked 25, around that range, because the earthquake really impacted this place a lot. Now, in national park like this, and Jasper, town of Jasper, inside the national park, is a tourist destination. We can call it natural tourism. It attracts tourists from all over the world, from Canada, Alberta in particular, and also US and other countries. As mentioned also by Dr. Rozdilsky, this number has been increasing, as you can see here in this graph. Up until 2019, before the COVID, it reached quite close to 2.5 million visitors. It's huge. When you compare with number of tourists visiting other destinations, it's quite large, and it dropped to 1.7 or close to 1.5 in 2020 during COVID period, and bounced back gradually, reached not to the same level, but seemed to be reaching closer to the 2019 trend if we did not have the wildfire, the trend could be something, if you look at the average, if you look at what could be possible, one basic projection of the situation could be that line that you can see there. We would perhaps reach to 2.5 million or a bit more over the next few years up to 2030. That could be considered as a normal trend, recovering from COVID, building based on what we had in the past, and also increasing number of tourists and so forth. However, wildfire happened and we had another decline. That was obvious. This happened right in the middle of the summer when this is the peak tourism time. And now we have to build scenarios. Are we, or can we, go back to the previous trend? Already we heard that, it takes time. It may not happen, of course, in 2025, definitely. At least based on, basic calculations, unless, things work differently. And even, there are two things here, normative and positive. You can push it to make it to the past, or you can be cautious, because in my view, and I think that is shared with Dr. Rozdilsky, that even if you can, it may not be environmentally, public health perspective or angle, a good thing to do. So too much pressure to increase and reach back to the same level may not be even safe. And there are reasons for that. So, but that's what you, or we may expect, at least, that we may reach to this level that we were by 2030 in the probably optimistic way. And if we, of course, take all the actions together. So that's one term. Now, we also want to look into the fact that this is the whole park, okay? This map here shows the park as a whole. This piece is the part that was impacted by the wildfire directly. So look at, this is not really a huge part of the national park, although this is really the core for a number of reasons. Some of the key attributes of the national park are within or close to the impacted area, as you can see in this map here. I mapped them all here so that you can see the location of some of the top features of this national park, those that are out or were outside the immediate impact zone, and those that are those were within or very close to that. Now, what is important is that, and we should always consider here, I intentionally look at this from the business perspective, is that really it may not be as important whether a service or facility or a business is impacted directly by a hazard, because sometimes the indirect impacts might be even worse or much more. So even if you are outside, still you may not be able to function because some of the key elements of your operation or functionality may be impacted directly by the hazard itself, that you may be out of operation. That was, for the most part, the experience that we also learned from COVID situation. Okay, so this gives you a picture of the situation that some of the key features of this were impacted directly, some indirectly, and this is a rough estimation or sort of assessment that I have from all these key attributes, whether they impacted the high level or moderate level or low, based on this, just assessment whether they were inside, outside the hazard zone, impacted directly or indirectly. But again, this is something to look and be mindful of. There are some obvious and important reasons why this is different, this situation. Already some of them clearly mentioned by Dr. Rozdilsky. And one is that this is a record-breaking wildfire in this national park. This national park, if you go to literature and to data in the past, you'll see experiencing wildfire quite frequently. It's not that this is not the first time. This is in fact many times in the past. Sometimes even with deliberate wildfire or prescribed wildfire to protect the environment. But this was something that the park has not experienced in the past for almost a century, which makes it unique in the sense that we may be indeed we are entering into a situation where these wildfires may not be a typical trend. These are in fact impacted or influenced by climate change. And there are many evidences that talks to that and support this idea that, we may indeed be waiting for experiencing the wildfire that are larger and in terms of magnitude, in terms of the area that they may cover, and in terms of frequency indeed. So that is also a different aspect of that. And this is being amplified in the media by experts, by those who have interest in this national parks. In Canada, you know that there are a lot of wildfires happening continuously, and people, when they see forests burning, they may see this is another forest, but really this is a different one, both in terms of the natural environment that it has, all the beauties, attributes that or national environmental benefits that they provide. So it's different really. It's not a typical situation. And on top of that, as I said, it is a national, international World Heritage Site, which means brings about another layer of responsibility that both in terms of protection and in terms of recovery and construction. I'm a bit surprised that this has not been raised to that level, at least from what I see, what I searched for. If it was in another country, I would say UNESCO would be jumping in, sending a lot of crews and people to investigate and do assessment, but really I have not, at least myself, seen. Perhaps there are some, not in the news as much, but attention to this aspect. Well, it could be because we might be feeling that responsibility and taking care of that, meaning that there is probably this recognition and we don't need to be worried about. But it is important to at least, I believe, convey this message to international or world experts and others that we are taking care of it. We are trying our best to make sure this World Heritage Site is recovered within, of course, the parameters that we work with and are are acceptable. I already talked about this in this publication or this short article in conversation that, you know, talks about more the impacts of climate change on this type of events, and also how important these national parks are for Canada and also for the whole world. Of course, when we talk about this, there is also economic look at this, mostly from income level, that is probably more relevant to the business part. This graph shows almost what is the tourist, what tourists spend in Rockies or Canada's Rockies, Alberta registry, which Jasper is included. This is quite significant amount if you look at it, and if you look at it from where they are coming, almost a third is coming from outside Canada. So that is what I'm saying. This importance of creating this communication, this international level, that this site is being taken care of. Now, of course, as you noticed, and this is also important in this case, during COVID, this declined significantly. That was, of course, because of the travel restrictions and so forth. It may not be the case in this part, but you still, again, I didn't try to make a prediction or assessment, but one can do this to see what would be the projection considering the wildfire. It's a bit tricky to do that calculation, but perhaps we can do some estimations of what would be the expected tourist spending here. Now, if this information is to the public, and people, when they make decisions about where to go this year, for example, and if they know that Jasper has already been impacted by wildfire, you know, some of the key attractions are there, but some others may not be as in their best position as they are. They may, you know, choose other destinations, go to other national parks, go to other countries, and so on. This is expected. I'm guessing that this may impact, of course, number of tourists and then the revenue that is going to be generated. Now going into the town itself in terms of impacts on businesses. We can compare this particular case with others. For example, the Fort McMurray. In terms of number of businesses, it was much more in that case. And also in terms of, you know, some of the insurance costs, etc. I don't have the figures for Jasper now, but from what you can see here, in terms of number of businesses versus residents impacted, one initial assessment that I did beyond this, noticed that, you know, Jasper as a whole is a business center, as a business hub. People who are even living there are living for business, tourist business there. For the most part, I shouldn't say everybody, but this is the reality. They are there. They are supporting, providing service to tourism, work there for mostly for tourism industry, and government who supports all these operations from indirectly or indirectly. So just to say, highlight that even the residents there are, you know, part of the business process. Well, initially when fire happened, you know, tourists and tourist business is more or less dependent on hotels. These are some of the key hotels and places to accommodation places were closed right after the fire. So talks about not being able to receive tourists. And some were not directly impacted by closed because there was nobody to stay there. But gradually they came back. The hotel that Jack and I stayed there was initially closed for a period of time. By the time we went there, fortunately it was open, and we stayed there during our observations. But there are some that are still closed for the of course understandable reason they don't exist anymore. Especially those here, they were completely destroyed by the fire. Now, rebuilding has started to some level, at least at the planning stage. I don't know exactly if they have removed the debris or not by now, but that was a concern. Probably not yet, fully at least. But that is usually the first step into the recovery process. But as they, or as we wait for that, planning is undergoing. And I'm really happy to see that some of the initial planning and policy making, developing guidelines have been created. This is what was most interesting for me. This is document available online. You can also take a look at it. This is rebuilding guide. Interesting for me for many reasons, but in particular, the fact that there are some changes in land use, as you mentioned, Mr. Rozdilsky, that this may change the previous picture of the town, because, for example, here it looks like that the municipality is encouraging more dense development, which makes sense to me, or at least why they are doing this. But there are some guidelines of how you can do it, and if you want to do it, this is a process. And of course, the phase-based rebuilding plan that guides people expectation over the time. I would really love to do sort of simulations of how this would work, or how long would it take for recovery construction to take place. Especially because, you know, for many reasons, post-disaster recovery reconstruction in Canada is very, very lengthy. If it was, for example, I don't know if I'm diplomatically okay to say this, but if it was in Japan, for example, or in China or somewhere else, these small towns would be rebuilt in a matter of maybe 6 months, period. But in our case, it is taking too long. I mean, there are processes to follow, but on the other hand, I'm also concerned about, for example, case of Lytton. Lytton is a small village with just a few hundred burned buildings and houses. Still, after 2-3 years, is not rebuilt. Some reconstruction has started as of last time I visited there. It seems to be in progress now, but it's just too long. And you know, when this process gets too long, if you want to investigate why is it the case, you know, sometimes for valid reasons, I would say in part, maybe in Lytton there are some valid reasons, but you will lose the population because you don't see any hope in, you know, any progress here. It seems to be different in Jasper. In my view, is because of the importance of the site, and because everybody probably knows that this is Canada's reputation in post-disaster recovery construction, because people are coming to see it. People, after 1 year, if they come and see from all over the world, they say, oh, this was the city that was destroyed last year by the fire, and it is like this now. So if they see progress, they would be, realizing that, and vice versa. So it is different in that perspective. Now, in terms of numbers, these are the numbers based on structures. So these all reds are those that were damaged directly, which is, as I said previously, about 1/3 of the total. In terms of numbers, 560. Sorry, this numbers should be reversed. No, that's correct. No means not impacted. Yes, that is dark. Those that impact. So that doesn't match the color there. Doesn't match this here. So there's two different things. But this is the numbers. At least you can see. Now, when you go into the composition of these structures and the percentage or number of impacted ones, this graph shows among those that, of course, not affected, the composition of different land uses and types of structures. And here you can see those with those that were affected. Now, look at this. This is the figure. This is the commercial. And this one is sort of residential. So relatively a large number of commercial structures were impacted. And the rest are also commercial. So if you combine all this together, significant portion of these impacted sites were commercial or business sites. And again, this is important when we compare the structures that are business structures and residential. A unit of residential structure, if damaged, is not going to have the same consequence for the community as, for example, a gas station. Although we count them as one number, but really the impacts, overall impact is different. This town, as shown in the picture shown by Dr. Rozdilsky, had one basically hardware store. And that one was destroyed, that only one. Now, at least by the time there is a replacement, there is a temporary warehouse for this kind of equipment and services, people have to rely on outside. And this is going to be complicating the recovery and also even ordinary people living conditions if they are not even directly impacted. So this is important. If you have only 2-3 main restaurants there, one is impacted, that's totally different. So that's why I'm glad to see over time, and this has been what I've been studying and working and trying to send a message, both from local levels and also at the international level over the past few years, that in post-disaster recovery reconstruction, we need to also the tradition was to look at the reconstruction mostly at housing and government facilities or infrastructure, not really taking care or looking closely into business recovery. But these two go hand by hand. If you don't recover the businesses or pay enough attention to support their recovery, the community recovery is going to be slow or incomplete at least. Now, I give you through the same lens some of the businesses that were impacted quickly because fortunately they were also covered by Dr. Rozdilsky. This is one of the business sites that were impacted by is that picture? No, this arrow.
Yeah, that should be up there, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the down.
So this is unique in a sense that this is at the core business center or district center. business district center, yeah. And for some reason, it is uniquely not in fire. You see, the rest of the area is intact, but these particular buildings were impacted, and the problem is that once, even for those nearby that are not impacted, this is going to disturb their operations. As we saw, the part of the street was closed because of the fences and everything surrounding. You see in this picture.
Yeah, my understanding was that that site in Denver flew from the Birmingham residential area and just landed on the roof of those businesses.
Thank you. Yes, that's one explanation, that ambers may have shifted from here to some of this. Unfortunately contained. This could be easily expanded to the rest and perhaps to the rest of the town. Now, this is one example. You can see also the view of the street here. So the rest are okay, just this. Francesco, raise your hand when I'm out of time, okay?
You're still good. You have about 10 to 15 minutes.
Thank you. That should be good. So, same, also took the same approach in terms of comparing before and after. Look at it, look at what it was there, what is now. This is the second case, which was a hotel, a big one, indeed, supporting a lot of tourists coming there, and remains in ruin. And you know, this is important also to see and know and learn how would the recovery reconstruction works for these. I'm going to make some points later on, but I'm saying this because it may be that they have incentives to rebuild quickly, especially if the local government supports the recovery reconstruction and process this fast enough, or it may be they just decide not to do it for a variety of reasons, including, you know, investment decisions. So there are some complexities there. We have not explored or have reached out to the business themselves to see what are their plans, but from what you can see on their website, at least, this is what they say. They say we are closed until we rebuild.
Yeah.
This is their website. This is not this first, I think it's not the first page. On the first page, when you go to book now, it turns you there saying we are not, we are closed, basically. That is the message. Also, one of the coffee shop or restaurants there, this is part of the complex that what seems to be an interesting, you know, tourist space for the town. Again, destroyed. Situation is unclear, but definitely a business. No, what is important, I think, based on what we did in the past, is the ownership time for this business. Most of these are, of course, small businesses. And even within the small businesses, there are varieties of formats. Most of them, if not all, here are family-based businesses. So their family income really depends on their operation. They will be impacted in a number of ways. This is the other, you know, we are talking here. This was the lawn we just covered. This was the coffee shop. This is another hotel nearby. So this whole segment was this, and you can see what, of course, was before and what is now. This is another part of the town where, these are cabins basically were given to tourists who want to stay there for a longer period. And of course, you can see what happened there. Look at the view. The view is still intact, but this whole part is gone. And I think we were talking about this particular case together with Dr. Rozdilsky that, for the most part, these cabins are on the edge of the forest and the elevations. And there are trees stacked right beside them in the backyard, all over to the top. So the chance of fire burning them, if it happens, is quite high, and that's probably that explains what happened here. There was no way to escape really from the fire in this particular situation. I had the opportunity to actually go on the top of the hill here, just beside this, and have some videos and pictures from the top toward this area. You can see, lines of trees right to the edge of all these buildings, which is not what is really recommended in areas where wildfire is a hazard. That's the same area almost in a different picture format. You can see two different situations. This one is the area. This is one of the business sites. So the city has basically, other than these tourist related, it has two industrial service sites. One is this area that was, of course, very close to the major fire coming in. So these were probably the first to be burned by the fire, as fire was coming from this direction. And also this part, which is mix of, it is an industrial park supporting some of the service businesses like automotive and also hardware and hardware is here, and also some of the municipal services, which was sort of kind of ruined in Minsk. And you can see some of the pictures there. One thing that, when we look at the housing, of course, housing recovery construction is its own. These are houses, complex houses, but these are properties that are rented. So there are people actually making business with these properties. So, and that's what I was trying to say, that although it appears to be residential versus commercial, but some of these residential are actually commercial because they are rental properties. And you see what it was, what it is right now. The same restaurant that was mentioned already, you can see it here. There are stories, in fact, if you go and read some of these restaurants have sort of historical attributes, because they were probably one of the first to be in the town. There were some, celebrities visited them, that they have collected some. So there are a lot of things lost. I would call it intangible losses that we may not actually be able to even recover them within all these places. Municipal services, both in private and public sector. These trucks, they cost a lot. If you want to replace them, it's not easy for a small town or municipality. And industrial park is this one, and this is the park itself. This is the area that's here. There are some nice pictures by Dr. Rozdilsky, showing details of what happened there. Now, what else? A lot of these other tourist destinations or service areas, like especially campgrounds outside the town, especially in the fire area, are no longer available or provide service. These are the ones that basically were on the line of fire. And now if you go, you'll see a lot of signs closed, closed, closed. And the chance that they will remain open, will become open next, maybe difficult to say. This is, okay, there are some, this is another camp, very large campsite you can see here. This also, these are in the red fire area, no longer available. You can see under the signs of fire here and there. Talked about also gas stations. There were several gas stations, but two that were close to each other, one in this side of the street, one in the other side, they were both. Now, these are the things probably that will come back soon, because there are needs, and there are companies that have interest and support, the oil companies, and they come jump in. There's no reason for them not to come. But from the other angle, you can see when we're talking about debris, these are not regular debris. These are chemicals. These are, depends on where they end, how they are washed away, or so. They really contaminate a lot of stuff. And so this is important from that angle too. Lastly, I'm going to also show you some images of what happened to the natural environment or landscape. That is where we all go there. We are not going there to stay in a hotel. We are going to visit all these attractions, beautiful sites, and then stay in the hotels to get, stay overnight and so on. But for many people, they go there because they want to hike, they want to see the lakes, they want to go for hiking, for ski and other things. But this is a picture of almost the same path before, and this is what I took this year after. Now, when I said sometimes it is better to not to have tourists there, is because it's not necessary. These dusts here are natural, but they are really serious health issues. Some form of cancers could be caused by, basically natural wildfire events. So it's not necessarily safe to walk, or at least until these are settled and recover to the level that the vegetation covers the dust. So especially if you don't want to do cleanup. So that is what is happening there. And for these, estimates are, in this kind of forest, the estimates are it takes between 20 years to about 100 years for full recovery. So it's not going to be fast, although the level of destruction or fire is different from different places, but some of the heavily impacted areas like this forest, these are basically charcoals, nothing else. You can see some of the other images. Now the landscape, you see the difference between areas impacted, areas that are not. And now this part is a sort of hill that overlooks this town, and this part has damaged significantly. Again, some more of these impacted areas landscape that there are some features of the park. I think this park has been also this is Athabasca Falls area. The falls, of course, not, but tourists also going there. When I was there, and perhaps you also saw some of those tourists there. You see the cars, people stop and visit. But the area is the path to they have cleaned the path, but still you see a lot of debris on the way to the fall, which, as I said, it may or may not be us. I'm going to finish with these two slides. That is more talking about so what and what is next, especially for business recovery. When we talk about business recovery as a whole, it really depends on how resilient businesses in the community or in the country are in principle. And when we say about resilience, resilience essentially can be divided into two. There are different words I used in other papers. I published different words for that. But in this case, for example, the authors have divided this into what they call it planned resilience. And another one is so planned versus adaptive resilience. Planned resilience is what you do before to make yourself resilient. Some businesses are because they take measures that make them resilient, and some don't. But adaptive resilience is the capacity of businesses to recover, by adapting themselves to the new realities and new situations. Sometimes they are good, but this really depends on the supports that they receive, depends on their management style, and depends on their ambitions. These all things support our adaptive capacity to change and to recover. Now, there's always a combination of these within different types of businesses, but I'm hoping, and from what I see, both from the government side, from the business side, it seems as also there's a tendency that people want to take care of it, they want to rebuild, they want to pay attention to that. It seems that all of these supporting factors or enablers exist to the level that this community can recover. When I talked about adaptive and planned resilience, these are some of the attributes of both. For example, when I said adaptive crisis resilience, here is really important because some business managers, they may not have that mentality or capacity or thinking that, yes, we can come out of this crisis, take measures that help them to recover and come back. But some are good in that, naturally or just by training or so, as we have seen in many other cases in the past. Some of the enablers that I mentioned, these are examples, not necessarily that I'm commenting on details, but we see already that federal government has put some support. Provincial governments through different mechanisms are providing supports for businesses. Even Canadian Red Cross is doing that. This has been becoming a trend by Canadian Red Cross that they are also shifting to provide more support to small businesses at the community level, which makes quite a lot of sense because, as I said, community recovery really depends on small businesses and community businesses to also recover. And with that, the question, are we or should we go back to open? And if we open, are we going to receive the same number? These are big questions to answer. And not everything is gloomy. This was my window to the city at this hotel that I stayed in the morning of October 7th or 6th. Beautiful. So regardless of what happened, life goes on. Natural has its own beauty there. Fortunately, some of the key elements of the town still is there. Unfortunately, some of the really historic churches and others were burned, but this is what we still have, and we can build on to make or recover from this tragedy and disaster. And with that, I stop, and we now go into 3 o'clock. We want to finish it by 3:30. We have 30 minutes of discussions and led by Dr. Rozdilsky. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Singh, for that presentation. And yes, as you mentioned, we will have about 30 minutes for the discussion that's led by Dr. Rozdilsky. So let me just slides again, and I'll share those. Would just like to remind everyone who's online, you can also participate in the discussion. If you want to just raise your hand, and we'll call on you. Yeah, from it's your time to. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Francisco, Dr. Asgary, if I may, I would like to present 10 minutes of information, then the remaining 20 minutes could be open to discussion and questions by all.
You had a question?
I can wait. No rush.
Dr. Asgary, toward the end of his presentation, presented a diagram. On the x-axis, it had time. On the y-axis, it had level of activity, and it depicted a scheme developed by the municipality of Jasper and Parks Canada guiding disaster recovery. What I want to say in the next 9 minutes is that I was personally very glad to see that type of planning taking place. And I want to relay the message to you that that type of planning is based in the disaster research literature. So there's someone at Parks Canada or somebody within the municipality of Jasper or a number of men and women who know what they're doing in terms of putting together state-of-the-art thinking on various scenarios for disaster recovery. And there we go. In 1977, Robert Cates and David Picella published a chapter in a book titled From Rubble to Monument, the Place of Reconstruction. That was in a larger compendium edited by Eugene Haas. And this book took a number of case studies of disaster recovery, a few coming from the Near East, I think 5 or 6 disaster recoveries in Europe, including the Friuli, Italy earthquake, and a few cases from North America. And this book from 1977 attempted to compile the state of the art in the late 1970s and what we understood and did not understand in relation to recovery. And as a result of the number of case studies put together in that book, a diagram was put together illustrating how disaster recovery may take place in sequential phases over time. And in that diagram, to make a long story short, there were 4 phases of sequential phases of disaster recovery depicted. First, an emergency phase lasting a period of weeks, days, or weeks, where normal activity would be ceased or changed, meaning the disaster just happened. Society is interrupted both physically and socially, and the activity is not at a normal basis, it's at an emergency basis. Moving from days to weeks, a restoration starts, where the main purposes are attempting to return to basic functions of the community. meaning clearing debris from the streets, restoring utility service, potentially starting on damage assessments. In other words, starting out with the very basic functions of the community and attempting to pave the way for return to the community to start on the rebuilding process. Then moving from a period of weeks to months, there is what they call the Reconstruction 1 process, meaning an attempt to return normal activity to pre-disaster levels if possible. In nomenclature today, I guess we would not call it return to a normal, but some type of return to a new normal. But this Reconstruction 1 phase would start in the first months, and they could potentially go for years. Estimating here, going potentially out 3 to 4 years to return to something close to pre-disaster levels. Then there's a Reconstruction 2 phase where normal activity is either improved or developed. And that would be where the concept of sustainability would come into play, community betterment after disaster, and sustainable redevelopment. And those were concepts that really came to the forefront in the late 1990s and early 2000s with the work of Dennis Mileti in sustainable disaster redevelopment. So the Jasper Recovery Coordination Center, staffed by both Municipality of Jasper and Parks Canada personnel with provincial support, has applied that basic model from 1977, but made their own version of it, naming it the Jasper Complex Incident Transition Spectrum, where you can see it starts out with the incident in the frame of days, re-entry in the frame of weeks. Then you can see recovery stretching out longer over months, and then last but not least, the rebuild going on, starting in the initial months, but going out for a period of years. And you can see this diagram is not exactly the same, but the diagram is conceptually based on the works of K. Pajawa in 1977. So in conclusion, leading into discussion, if we take the conception of the Jasper Complex Incident Transition Spectrum into account, right now, Dr. Asgary, these are the open questions. I think we could suggest that the incident has wound down or close to an end with the emergency phase, running from days to weeks, where during our site visit in October, we were there on week number 6, where I did observe some effects of the emergency incident still in place. I would suggest perhaps if one would travel to Jasper in December, you would probably see a complete wind down of emergency incident management type of things. Next, you can see the reentry, where the objectives include air quality monitoring, employee and residential supports, concurrent recovery planning, support functions, etc. Where population reentry, I'm not sure if that has entirely taken place yet. It's started, I don't think it has finished, because there are likely some residents who are in a wait and see mode to see how things pan out. Imagine if you were a worker at the restaurant that burnt down. I'm Dr. Asgary, I'm pretty certain that that restaurant has not been rebuilt yet. I'm pretty certain that the Malign Lodge, which you represented, has not been rebuilt yet. So imagine if your livelihood was based on a worker at one of those facilities. What would happen if you would move back into town? You would need to support yourself, but your primary place of business has no way of being open at least for another 6 to 8 months. If they rebuild over the winter time, which due to the winter is probably not, construction is going to slow down. And then we have the recovery where we could see things like damage assessment, abatement, site reclamation, insurance adjustment, planning and development, policy reviews, etc. So in closing of the remarks and leading into the discussion with the audience members and Dr. Asgary, I guess we could ask ourselves, moving into the middle phases of this chart, what would the policy priorities be for a place like Jasper? Is the policy rebuilding schools? Is the policy rebuilding the healthcare system? Is the policy next year's municipal budget and deficit and tax loss? Or should the policy be focused on rebuilding the tourism facilities as soon as possible, as that will be the piece which spurs economic development perhaps? It's an open question. There's a lot of perspectives that can be taken, but I would suggest over the winter months, there needs to be a lot of thinking taking place on what the policy priorities would be in guiding recovery forward. As Dr. Asgary suggested, we may not know too much about how this works. There are limited case studies concerning small business environments and tourism. As Dr. Asgary suggested, the literature from 2022 coming from Australia. But in Canada, I'm not sure we've entirely thought through these issues in their entirety yet. So I think many of these policies are an open question. And Dr. Asgary, I'll stop there and open the floor to discussion and questions for the remainder of the time period. Francisco?
Yeah, thank you. I think, Elliot, you had a question?
Oh, thank you.
Start.
It kind of relates to the earlier discussions, but I'm just curious. I know that Jasper is one of the key spots along the railway, and I'm not sure if you know this offhand, but did it shut down temporarily? Like, was everything west of Jasper inaccessible by rail during that period? Does anyone know the answer to that?
Yeah, I can comment a little bit. Jasper, number one of the reasons, one of the tourism features in town is the historic train station. There is a railway called the Rocky Mountaineer, which is a higher end travel geared toward visitors from, I believe it ends in Vancouver, but it starts at, yeah, it starts in Banff, and I know many tourism packages involve coming into Jasper as a specific type of train that has open air skylights, not open air, but glassed in ceiling, where, for example, people would take a train into Jasper, stay in Jasper for 2 days, then take the train to another park destination. During the wildfires, of course, there were portions of the rail line affected but not shut down due to the fire, so it wasn't running as it was at other times. But there's another aspect of the railroad, which is a CN transfer point for engineer and personnel transfer. And one of the issues that's being considered right now in terms of the city economy is whether Canadian National is going to maintain its facilities for maintenance and management in Jasper, or whether they're going to not decide to rebuild those in Jasper and shift those administrative and maintenance functions to a place like Hinton. And if Canadian National makes a decision not to invest in rebuilding their capacity in Jasper and shifting it to another town further down the rail line, that would be a blow to Jasper's economy, where the freight trains, which run frequently in the transcontinental route, would be traversing through Jasper, but not stopping for service or personnel transfer. So there's some issues around the extent to which the railroad will either continue through Jasper in terms of freight transfer and not stop, or whether CN is going to reinvest in rebuilding its capacity for the small containment yard and consolidation yard, which is located in Jasper. Dr. Asgary?
It's the same, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for your presentation. You mentioned that you visit Jasper almost 3 months after the wildfire. What's your prediction about the reconstruction? Do you think it could be a reputation of Canada, as you said in your presentation, or not? Because when we see the pictures after 3 months, even the debris was all around the city and nothing was removed actually. That's the point that I want to see. What do you think about that, about the reconstruction and recovery from the wildfire?
Regarding the question referred to the visible appearance of Jasper with the debris approximately 6 weeks out and how that would perhaps form impressions and perceptions to be visiting Jasper in the future, meaning 2025 and 2026. One of the issues Jasper and Parks Canada face is in this economy with limited leisure time and limited disposable tourist income, people have choices they can make to go to places which have the services people want to use with their limited time and money on vacation, or whether people want to go on more of an adventure. There is going to be an issue Jasper faces when pictures like some of the photographs myself and Dr. Asgary have shown have been published globally. If I'm in Berlin, Germany, and want to take a vacation to the Rocky Mountains, I can make a choice to go to Aspen, Colorado, or I can make a choice to go to Banff, or I can make a choice to go to Jasper. But I probably want to go to a place that's going to give me the type of experience I want. So there's going to be a perception issue. If Jasper is perceived as a place that is non-functional and entirely destroyed, tourists may avoid it and take a wait-and-see attitude and choose to go to other Rocky Mountain destinations in Canada or the United States. So, Dr. Asgary, at least when I was in Jasper, it was stressed to me a number of times to relay the message back to Toronto and other places that Jasper is open for business, that Jasper is not completely destroyed. Please come and visit Jasper. You can have a decent experience, and you can also play an important role in helping the economy and rebuilding. And the facts on the ground indicate, despite the pictures of vast destruction, that is about 1/3 of the town. There are other portions of town which are operating fine, but when we say operating fine, we have to consider if you're going to a restaurant, the restaurant needs to have workers. When 1/3 of your residential area is destroyed, where are those workers going to be living? Where are the trucks going to get gas, bringing in supplies to the restaurants? What are the hours going to be? What is the service quality going to be? being in a post-disaster city is a stressful experience. For some visitors, people may find that type of experience exciting. And as part of the draw, part of the contribution to the future of Jasper, for others, they may decide to go elsewhere. It's, I think, Dr. Asgary, a perception issue that needs to be considered by businesses, especially for the 2025 summer tourism season. What type of messaging does Jasper project to the outside to make sure Jasper stays at top of mind for tourism destinations, given that Jasper has capacity to handle that type of thing?
Thank you. Well, another, maybe some additional comments here is that when it comes to recovery and reconstruction, and especially talking about the speed, there's a delicate line between whether you want to speed it up or you want to slow it down, the recovery construction. And it's important to notice that for me, at least, people and politicians, people want quick recovery because, of course, their life is impacted. Politicians, sometimes they say they want, fast recovery to make some promises. They often do so. But the reality is different. The reality is that you have to work with, what resources that are available, conditions that make recovery construction possible, often neglected or not paid attention to. In our case, or what I said, in terms of the speed of recovery, or at least I see, situations where we delay recovery for reasons that are not quite reasonable, meaning that we lower the speed of recovery for things that we can speed it up. For example, for some of these regulatory aspects, for some of these decisions, planning decisions that often takes a lot of time in Canada, we can improve the time frame. Or even insurance processes is quite long. It shouldn't be like that, especially in case of recovery construction. We say if insurance claims are processed in a normal situation, like it's 2-3 months, for emergency situations like this, it should take 2-3 weeks, because that is important for people to get back. So these delays, if we can minimize these delays, that in my view are important, but not necessarily this long, we can speed up a lot in that. And of course, we need to be also considerate that some aspects, for example, when we talk about debris removal or cleaning or air quality monitoring or even environmental quality monitoring, we have to be considerate of those. We have to make sure that they are properly done before we start rebuilding. Here we see site reclamation or site planning. If these sites, these buildings are contaminated, the ground or the land, you have to do proper decontamination, and that takes time. Now we also facing harsh winter time. Whether we want it or not, things cannot be done. Certain recovery construction things cannot be done. So while we consider those, I just want to emphasize that we should take a balance between the highest speed and lowest speed, which seems to be biased more toward or leaning toward lowest speed, doing things as normal or as we do it in the normal situations. That's my point. But other factors considering, especially in this particular case, interest from business, interest from government to make it happen. I think that is sort of opportunity that we see. This may be a different recovery construction, despite all the complexities that exist.
And I also think Jasper has an intangible going for it versus something, well, I don't wanna, versus potential other cities. For example, if a small town in northern Ontario unfortunately faces a disaster and is wiped out to the extent that Jasper was, there's going to be, I think, a more difficult argument on why public funding should be rebuilding this place and why private investment should be based in that place. People may move to another place and continue their life. Whereas in Jasper, I appreciate Dr. Asgary in your chart, you had a listing of the SkyTram, various hikes, various national park features. Next year, the park is going to be green. It's going to look different, but it's going to be green. The waterfalls are going to exist. The SkyTram will be rebuilt. The glaciers are still there. Retreating due to global warming, but you can still see the ice on top of mountains. That can't be taken away. So there's always something Jasper has going for it, is the national park and the unique national park ecosystem is always going to be in demand no matter what. Whether Jasper rebuilds or not, people are going to find ways to go through that area and visit the national park, period. The question is Jasper a place you drive through and don't stop because nothing is working and it looks like a debris field? Or is Jasper the place you stop, get gas, go to a restaurant, stay overnight, visit the SkyTram, stay another night in Jasper, go for a walk downtown, stay for another night in Jasper, see another feature nearby, then go on to Banff or the next city. So I think that's what Jasper is kind of looking at right now. Can Jasper get back, as Dr. Asgary presented in the graph, with the number of tourists, can Jasper get back close to that point that it was in 2022 and 2021 after the pandemic? Or does Jasper readjust to some type of new normal that's perhaps not as many people, but a different type of visitor experience, which is appropriate to the site? But we also should not put in a stress on visitors too much. Keep in mind there's 4,800 people who resided there, who may or may not come back, who live, work, go to school, go to food stores, seek health care, use public libraries, expect public safety and public services. So there's also the needs of residents we have to put first and foremost, not only the people visiting town for 2 hours to 2 days, but the people who make their way of life in Jasper also need to be considered, and how do we make policy choices to, move toward the best outcome for all of the stakeholders, including residents and those who are tourists to town. I think that's a difficult policy question that needs to be considered.
We do have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions if anybody online or anybody here has another question. Please feel free to ask.
Something I think we did note that Dr. Asgary did, I think we need to note. During the disaster in Jasper, there were no deaths due to the fire. The evacuation was not entirely unproblematic, but the evacuation was successful in that no one was killed in Jasper during the fire or during the fire evacuation, with the exception of one local firefighter who perished in the weeks following the fire. But other than that, there was no situations of mass death or mass injury with the wildfire. That's why we're focusing on aspects of reconstruction right now. Fortunately, notwithstanding the one death of a local firefighter, people were safe in the evacuation.
I don't, oh wait, maybe it was in chat.
Yeah, you have a question here.
Oh, yeah, another question.
Does anyone online have any?
No,
I
no,
don't
they
wanna
were,
take away.
no, they were just expressing their thanks and their, and sending their regards to the people in Jasper, so you can go ahead.
This one I think is more directed to you, Dr. Asgary. I don't remember the acronym, but you were talking about, something like 21 or 22 sites in Canada that are designated as these like world,
Oh, the UNESCO heritage?
yes, UNESCO, thank you. And just saying, it's interesting that there hasn't been really any international assistance with Jasper. But you're saying in other countries, they would be pretty quick to get involved. Is there any particular reasoning why you think they didn't jump in? Is it because they think Canada has the capacity to deal with it on their own? Or,
I believe so. I think so. Let's put it this way. I think that is probably the perception. That is, we take care of it and probably we report back to them based on the past records, at least. And sometimes they also think that Canada is, if there are countries that are experiencing wildfire, Canada is among those that are experiencing this. So they don't expect countries that are not experiencing wildfire, especially a lot of countries there, they don't have really wildfire experience as much as we do. So they probably look at it strong capacity because we have experiencing this more than others. And also, I think we have quite good representation in the UNESCO body that looks after World Heritage Sites and so forth, meaning that perhaps there are some discussions on through the teams that are there or representing us in UNESCO on these issues, and probably creating that confidence that we are basically in charge. And perhaps at some point, obviously, we report back to them when things, or maybe periodically, I'm assuming that there are meetings happening, once a while. Canada, like other countries, report back to those who are overseeing UNESCO heritage sites in terms of updating the situation and so forth. That is probably happening, and because of that, maybe we don't receive that sort of influx of experts and others coming to investigate or look at it from outside. Really, I haven't seen on the news, but this doesn't mean that this is not happening. Or I haven't seen the report, it doesn't mean that it is not happening. Nice. I hope that explains, but that's a good question for me too, to go and investigate it in detail.
do some research myself. Thank you.
And I also think Dr. Asgary and Talia, the federal government through Parks Canada does have skilled personnel and administrative capacities for Canada's national park system, which may contribute to
Absolutely.
why international bodies may think Canada is handling this, given that we have designated federal government agencies with men and women who specialize in these types of things, specifically for conservation and heritage sites.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. And we are running out of our end time. So Before we close, I just want to ask if any of the speakers have any last closing words. No? If not,
And I guess a last closing word, and Dr. Asgary, you may concur. My impression was when in Jasper to relay back to others that Jasper is open for business, that Jasper is welcoming visitors, and that Jasper in 2025 looks forward to remaining to be open to business and welcome visitors to the community. We'd be remiss if we gave the impression that 100% of the community was destroyed during the wildfire. About 1/3 of the community was destroyed during the wildfire. It's a complicated situation, but one can go into Jasper, stay in a hotel, get gas, go to a restaurant, see a few things and not have to experience any aspect of the disaster debris if one stays in certain parts of town. So Jasper is going through a difficult time, but I guess we could say Jasper is also alive and well and trying very hard in their recovery process.
Yes, thank you. And I'm probably going to say two words. One is on, there's always after every disaster situation like this, there are also possibilities, opportunities for change. Here, probably changes may be more related to how best we can protect future or in the future this town. Or rebuild in a way that is not going to happen the same. I mean, the wildfire. Some of these could be prevented. The firefighters tried their best to protect the city, but really there are things that can be done in advance to minimize the impact. So I'm hoping that during this recovery construction, we take those into consideration. It seems so because the plans look into that, but people need to take them more seriously. This first point, and the second point is more into really learning from this, documenting this, learning from this, and making this as an experience that we can share it with others, making it a good experience for people, of course, first, and for others as well. Because this is unique, this can contribute a lot to the overall experience, and it gives us an opportunity to show also other countries in these situations how they can manage it, how they can rebuild under these sort of conditions. And it's important because also all this climate change related issues, the chance that we may experience similar experience next year or other years is quite high. But that's it, and thank you very much, everybody, for coming here. Those who were online, appreciate that. And hopefully it was helpful, useful for those who attended.
Okay, thank you very much to everybody for taking the time to come up today, either in person or connect online. Really appreciate you and joining us for the event. Yeah, with that, I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you so much. Take care.
And we still have coffee and stuff, please
Yeah.
have another break.
Yes, there is still coffee, pastries left over, and also just a reminder, this is recorded and it will be up on our YouTube channel. Next week. Thank you guys.
No, Dr. Asgary. Can you comment on something? We were discussing